Advantage 1 is middle powers, the hardest partner is king, slot 35. In terms of order match, party power, ability to combine middle powers, small power within Western institutions, most powerful assets, ability to walk away, defensive plus alternative, from not set to win 2 deals, nothing new to polar roles resembles a bizarre backing. The ICC gives the US a party and to align middle powers to liberal norms, also 24. ICC making the order middle powers must remain connected to service of prosecution is forfeits and suppressive for nation claims for national support. The ICC will enforce the order and enhances use credibility as a reciprocal effect in the ICC strength. It's on the brink of session ensures follow on fee 24. U.S. hypocritical opposition sanctioning democratic ICC signaling actors can commit crimes damage to legitimacy tribunal need be legitimate. The U.S. should ratify Rome if U.S. ratify perceptions of ICC worldwide improve. Otherwise, we regress into isolationism. Sheriff to 18. Hostile approach transformed into isolationism prevented peacekeeping cutting off countries vital to security. Current example was a lawsuit in UNCHR. Several Western countries said opposition to ICC. ICC legitimacy contains transnational risks. Extinction Freeman 24. Transnational risks to require multi-stakeholder approach on mass crime and terror. Can bio and nuke ICC investigations in countries that present serious medium-term risks. Report how West African, Venezuela, Sudan, and South Sudan indictments keep leaders in tech ICC been active. U.S. unengaged with the ICC efforts region would be even more active for hijack terrorist convergence leading to rapid expansion of threats. Court follows your national interest gain 22. In ICC, we will be the first among equals members of holding for security leadership defining legal standards have to say about who should be prosecuted. We lose nothing. American service members subject to prosecution. Congress can pass a law to limit U.S. commitment. We can ensure the ICC determines jurisdiction. Middle power alignment prevents existential conflict. Outweighs the most likely and proximate triggers of great power escalation. Switches from 3. Recipe for World War III's middle power stability will provide middle powers wanting to address ambitions and stabilities increase rapidly where ambition is calculable great powers and the counts forfeit competitive advantage promoting influence Washington to develop security norms and force credibly regional and proxy conflicts risk nuclear escalation even if not directly to create a self-reinforcing cycle that erodes every constraint risking deterrence failure. Sense 24. Fueled by cooperative mechanisms challenges faster and accelerate hot wars in Ukraine, Russia, the Mideast, STS, and also spread intensify conflict elevates risk of regional conflict escalation, nuclear annihilation remains a strict regional conflicts that general Russia co-op disrupted global supply chains fees calls for isolation. Independently, middle power cooperation is vital to overcome collective action problems that factor every X-risk perk 22. Globalization brings system-wide risk for power policies, compound challenges, raise collective action problems, existential risks like nuclear war, climate change, global health, finance, trade, migration, inequality, greater crop derivatives were expect role the middle powers possibilities for not just global health and middle powers of the last volatility and sustained international co-op. Advantage 2 is Sudan. Ratification propels the ICC to prosecute in Darfur. Chapter 23. The ICC advanced U.S. violence. U.S. can influence the prosecutors, diplomatic collective advance lawfare. Washington weaponized ICC for justice. In Darfur, Trump jumps on the opportunity to be a peacemaker. Hudson 25. Sudan states on Trump the missing ingredient ending war. Trump has a history of removing from state terrorism. Exchange ambassadors signing Abraham Accords ending war denied. Russia and Iran profit and revive favorable presence. Sudan's Red Sea. Trump emerges as peacemaker. The ICC is empirically tied to turn into Sudan, but reviving legitimacy is key. Horton 21. The ICC permits a work on the declaration to prosecute but to know how veteran results in the ICC and clear and effective offer referral associated with threefold decrease in fake housing political solutions to come arrest warrant to be executed. Successfully, the ICC relies support from states who will bet ICC save lives. Collapse reverberates across the horn. There's 24. Unless internet to Sudan, complete collapse not like anything before the Red Sea trade complications carry huge consequences to collapse. Is appealing to ISIS creating both the terrorists across the Red Sea reverberate across Africa, knock-on effect in CAR, Chad, South Sudan, catastrophic ramifications, escalates every conflict delivers around this region foothold in the Red Sea and intensifies migratory shocks economies. 4. Sudan is a chaos machine used in civilians, country disintegrates, success rate across the Red Sea, harboring the conflicts longer, war enders, greater risk of safe falls entirely around the northern Red Sea, easier for Russia and Iran to cooperate. If Sudan collapses for Europe and American navigation, it would be impossible to refugees 2.2 million people migrate to Europe, only pick up 60% hoping to claim asylum. Conflict draws in great powers in November 23. Sudan creating a spill over Israel and Israel, China, and Russia seek economic interest heightened. Possibility intervention. African instability goes nuclear in game 20. Horn Africa conflicts erupted tensions went to flare into new world leaders ending on the treaties creating arms prolific low barriers to nuke war. Anyone turned into flesh by Africa is responsibility over threatening just like the whole region. Refugees in Sudan clashes could deploy for line of contact or mission involved in a war. Migratory shocks erupt into nuclear war. Clear 20. Events took a massive like rookie cast migration lead to international conflict. A shockwave could deny one after another ricochet picture of food crisis and mass migration consequences will be failure states anarchy in all nations, global networks breakdown, systemic collapse, raising prices and catastrophic risk of failure escalate. Iran shuts down the Red Sea all the time at 25. Iran's ambitions direct President's Red Sea strengthens stability and Philippines, Sudan is ideal host no foreign bases coastline gives direct line to Jeddah. Closures go global and nuclear burns 22. Vessels have been targeted by all types attacks involving Red Sea at risk evident from trade disruption, essential financial risk is around new trading choke point Red Sea risk rose rest of the long-standing works that should make short-term effect and short-term world will die, petroleum, marine shipping remain targets Americas, Europe, Africa, MENA, Asia, connected shipping become existential risks. The plan, the United States ought to become party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Solvency ratification revitalizes legitimacy and soft power. Quote 24. The use of environmental and non-member debate accountability use of loose data for the diplomas of the track record disqualification of violence and to translate to a party making soft power. The U.S. should ratify the Rome Statute, begin legitimacy, reshape ICC and U.S. interest, court defense, and resources U.S. change. Downside risks are academic non-starters. Amendment 3. Prosecutors sworn by UN and the appropriate use beyond ICC's reach forced by the U.S. meet criteria concerns. Political prosecution, complementary mean ICC will not step in the U.S. Justice and crime center investigating in jurisdiction unlike the U.S. Army compliant joining have little effect to eliminate arguments hypocritical appear to confirm a chilling effect on violence which outweighs negative assertions. 420. ICC prevent violence control of variables distinct impact results of robust ICC reduce casualties to fewer ratio of violation by robust certification associated with reduction of studies showing the increases of violence uniformity is striking. Becoming party to bans actions that defeat the object and purpose of a treaty. You intend to become party to stable express consent to be bad creates an obligation to refer for acts that defeat the object and purpose of the treaty. That includes sanctions. A kind of 18 U.S. sanctions and inconsistent with ICC prosecuting ICC officials defeat the object and purpose of a court from functioning.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you give me the box size?
Yeah. Okay. How does the plan solve African migratory shocks?
Yeah, prevents collapse in Sudan.
Why does that solve migratory shocks?
Yeah, the Economist evidence says that if Sudan collapses, there will be more than 2 million people trying to migrate to Europe. It says that 60% of people in Sudan are hoping to, quote, claim asylum.
Sure. How does that plan solve Sudan collapsing?
Yeah, allows the ICC to prosecute both sides of the civil war. We've read evidence that says it has
Why
a
does that
fearful killing
why does that
effect.
solve collapse for large?
Right, the Hortonal evidence says that the ICC can prevent crimes in Darfur. It says that an ICC referral was, quote, associated with a threefold decrease in fatalities. It says that when...
We already read an internal link between, like, that and, like, solving Sudan collapsing, like, globally.
Sure.
Yeah.
Threefold decrease in fatalities. It means that generally conflict declines, people don't want to go to jail, which means that when the ICC prosecutes with legitimate, credible force backed by the United States, it's more likely that both sides of the war will back down.
Okay, sure. This Freeman evidence, how does ICC legitimacy contain risks?
Yeah, the argument is that when the ICC is legitimate and it prosecutes a sort of violence in, Freeman says, Afghanistan, Venezuela, Sudan, and broadly across the Sahel, the threat of indictments is sufficient to sort of like dissuade leaders from doing bad things.
Okay, our national interest, the court follows it. Trump obviously does not want to prosecute people. Why would this be good?
Trump doesn't want to prosecute people, warrant.
Okay, well, so this card says that the court would follow on national interest,
Right.
correct? Okay, sure. Where have you read that our national interest is good?
All of our evidence says that our national interest is good. It says it allows the U.S. to prosecute its enemies and benefit its allies.
Wait, yeah, no. It says that it allows us to do those things. Where have you read that the U.S. wants to do those things?
The U.S. does not want to benefit itself. No, our slaughter evidence says that, quote, in Trump's world, what matters is bargaining power. Trump wants to make deals with our allies. He says
Which card is this?
First card.
Okay, sure. It says that he cares about bargaining power. Why would the ICC give him that?
The LSL evidence says that the ICC gives us leverage over middle powers. A lot of countries, like the UAE, commit
Where does it
things
say
that
that
could
it
be
gives us
considered as
power
crimes.
over middle powers? It says that the U.S. forfeits a deterrent and says...
Forfeits a deterrent. Yes, deterrent, i.e. leverage.
Wait, how does...
Sure, it is a deterrent against middle powers from balancing with China.
That the
That's
U.S.
what
gives
LSL
away
said.
that deterrent?
The U.S. right now is giving away that deterrent, but the plan gives us it.
Okay, sure. Why does that give us leverage over those middle powers?
Well, yes, when we say it gives a deterrent, that means that it is something that the U.S. can use to persuade middle powers to align with us, i.e. we can protect you from ICC prosecution if you do things that are in our interest.
Okay, sure. That's fine. Okay, it's 7 in case, 8 in case.
Fun. I'm good.
Carter?
Yep.
Theory 3 of the rule is wrong, racist, relies on Western conceptions of sovereignty, but negative, rejected when he hops to politics, racist rappers, for to roll back, backlash, IR, race, racial hatred, active assistance from the always should be affirmed, 9, racist scholar discourse that it's no longer to matters based impact regardless, interpretation of what is seen obviously the world, negative dispute the scholarship for one is distancing and cause, this is back about debaters scenario for the world outside theirs where real ones is ignored, even if we are wrong, interpretation debaters must disclose, affirmative figures from the areas certain for the round, they did a screenshot is inserted in the doc, their name for clash also posting incentivized, surprise tactics and polar front position that will allow to prevent the clash of the debate there, interpretation discouraged for the testing by the limiting amount, I'm sorry, we have to prepare negatives or forceful large next to the small conceptual charges before destroying everyone's argumentation, but you should talk about this which mentioned the narcissist struggle and cares of the plan. They didn't put negative facts in front of the kill each count with the deal, excuse competing interpretations, anything else that caused the intervention, race to the bottom until up the debater for deterrence. Now, the next off counterplay, the 47th president should request legal opinion over become party to the Rome Statute, the International Court, the Office of Legal Counsel should publicly advise the executive and Congress to become party to the Rome Statute, the International Court. So also repeats how accountable lawyering to revitalize credibility and transparency. OC 20, OC authorized in advising on proposed actions, provides law, can principle advise describe duty obligation to provide us view of law, no troubling OOC is being extreme, and Trump troubling OOC has been extreme, really defensible, political credibility on the line, restoring our status quo, standard, independent, official, advising our commitment, norms, principles, OOC committed to publishing opinions, business, to ensure accountability of the OOC to scrutiny, prevent politicization, and relies on OOC to justify moral majors and Congress legal ways for executive actions, hold nuclear war, code 16, lowering role negotiation, litigation, above national, the women groundwork to improve effectiveness, important transparency, in order to be quick to give advice in public supporting the action of the board to interpret to shape ILA as interpret action and negotiation or new institution arbiter disputes when policy made lawful prompts to public to show should be normal expectation of what should be opinion to public published to normalize the rationale we want to share this is not ad hoc rational it's OC facilitated better reporting legal conference for crisis conclusion legal counsel facilitated the best policy option OC opinions not enforce law or policy rather executive questions Sullivan 21 OC not have final rule or enforceable functions to advise determines their rights obligations legal counsel advice address questions become party to requires and actions there's 24 person member would have to become part of the English requiring set advice and consent US is indivisible 86 meaning that was like U.S. single entity, the government, the U.S. is not good with any branch individual functional loans best specifically eliminates all generics and possible burden to against two acts that destroys fairness encourages small cases to dodge clash. Now, the next all president of the United States should not be each other treated act review of 2025 get passed by the United States Congress. The TRA has been now passed even if it can't overcome a veto of self-congressional power and its terrorists that cause devastating trade wars. Backwards for 11 war, just by the bipartisan bill against presidential war restored. Authority to wars can be devastating wars and press arbitrary terrorist bill. When it passed our votes enough to resident political senators sign on the after political energy and causes long fight. The legal insurance case was on 21 due to the illustrious MP treaties, subject to purchase and norms, indifference to Allah, hindering integration treaties, pending law disease treaties, pending for decades, quick this is voted, closure application block any bill measuring the threat from sub treaties, and tendency to react to allergic outputs, external influences, political energy treaties, and treaties very hard to pass. Congress, reclaiming power is key to policy coherence, also multiple areas for extinction. Hamilton 2 returns until they strain resources intensifying interstate conflict crime, drug trade disease, national power, threat and security, U.S. discriminatory capacity to equal to world set example principled action, importance of successful political cooperation between President and Congress for suppressing improved FOCO markedly now. The next off the U.S. non-co-op ensures ICC can't prosecute nor arrest citizens working. The 20 under Rome ICC U.S. as citizens prosecution no case against U.S. citizens face non-co-op prosecuted citizens behind minimal Trump strike blow against the court shut down a course of investigation member countries would battle to win the U.S. over the ICC ratification risks U.S. political arrest growth and Schaefer 9 Rome statute opening investigation against charges against U.S. party any failure actions against the U.S. president or secretary of defense U.S. found self-defeating against fellows motivated challenges in international political charges against the U.S. officials of Penn, U.S. sovereignty and ensures lash out via enemies necessary news wires. 18 U.S. will use enemies necessary to protect citizens from prosecution courts be much of the ICC threatens the U.S. sovereignty. The ICC have power authority of the U.S. Constitution to president will not allow their citizens to be prosecuted. He will not allow the nation to dictate self-defense events. Fear perceptions of the erosion of sovereignty prevents great power wars. Series 20 reuse national security threats on the face of the close requires police. Nor intimidate restraint between adversaries as long as we requires to be approval that are forced to attack our rivalries and that prevent existing sovereign risk of dangerous or interactions remain significant. Willingness to cooperate heavily because of respect for national sovereignty. Now, the next law of the United States should increase the drone streets against Nazi terrorists, road drone strikes against Nazi actors, and alter 14 state provisions ban targeting terrorist commands civilians, willful killing crimes not combatants, whoever tell qualified combatant qualified civilian under 8 ISO, for which Rome Statute and otherwise terrorists, Nazi actions constitute civilians, launching of drones implicates liability under Article 28 Rome Statute to decide substantively attempts to target civilians participated in not be attacked. Drones are key to disrupt safety. Even Reagan 22 considerable evidence of the kids checks legally we can with the AQC evacuation relatively safe haven for which the plan to individual protects the west coast of the country to lowering the risk of attack. Safe haven to nuclear enabled eliminate terrorism. Banner 23 wants an action of team raw. They need suitable space safe havens make weapons production more feasible. Just when it affects safe havens Australia by seizure of northern Iraq, it'll be nuclear states filled. 23, threat of extremism and WMDs arisen percent their numbers. Threats al Qaeda struck threat from its personally obtained nukes. Iran top suits consider this relation makes al Qaeda responsible and attack terrorism. Now, the next step, the United States should overturn immunity interpretation law for investigations to ignore the prosecutors, 16 black ops, support the ICC, not Iran, promote adherence to ICC, increase diplomacy, and support the ICC, and take against the ICC, adopt secret internal documents preventing drawn, and release, initiate eventual letting no strike for striking the broad critical of Korea, if and only if the United States become party. 2. The International Criminal Court, Group 1 solves no powers and credibility. All ISO 21 inserted in green. Now, group the support screen, not the actual treaty, inserted green. Secrecy of the plan can be secret dates 18. Secret command instruction, most corporation off the record, U.S. First of all, secrecy support, dimension infringement, the U.S. include number of services defending from attack of the card at attack and group 2 solves command drops, group 3 solves escalation. Code 1 2020 threats against the U.S. on just within no collapse capabilities, no capabilities to carry out threats and beliefs of cross from failing to the legal officials as well. The U.S. provoking threats to escalate alarms well, putting no strike no supports considering prevention no to resolve the arguing beliefs for attack to assist possible no go for streets of the deterrent retaliating against the U.S. supported fundamental measures of ability will be deterrent. Cut the card and deterrent now. Case. Change incentive leaders forced them to commit or abuse of state power done. 17. The ICC notification not prevent intrusive intervention includes the state leaders commit the abuse of hold on to gain power over the ICC. Cut the card ICC. Trump state should join the ICC. Regardless of the app news. AC 215. Trump state shall ICC chief prosecutor and direct secretary of defense. The vaccines will become clear carbon must pointing out Trump's exit and exit over the imposes severe from ICC official distinction. Without the US refused to transfer funds. Cut the card at funds. And no great power war over Africa at all 15. There's no point of emphasis for conflict in Africa, US unofficial research further likely reduces the return great power war not guarantees resource supply of Brazil for China, the US interwar nuclear return to Africa, oil level of valuable resource extraordinary small, middle powers pair backward, to attract middle power is fixed expectation middle power should be kept on as weak retaliation between middle states complicate interactions, diplomacies, ad hoc plans, regular formats and coordination diplomacy will remain impromptu and no enforcement. The IC structurally incapable shy 23 Sudan, President illustration ICC shortcoming intervention has been viewed as determined by the developing states, refraining from cooperating. The ICC further attributed over reliance on states cooperation, reliance and enforcement, relying on states to address specific and other practices, perception of neocolonialism, focus on Africa's but actions to combine specifically its legitimacy and ability to influence national actors. Shy. Actually, yeah, that card isn't cut. Never mind. I'm good for Krauss.
Cards that were read on case, no great power war, middle powers fail, no enforcement, what else?
No good power, what else am I familiar? The first card, the second card, and then no enforcement.
Yeah, that was B, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Critique, what's the link?
The link, there's two. First is your theory of IR is West Center. The Hobson evidence says that this politics causes an increase in racist thinking and scholarly discourse because a shift towards Eurocentric application of international relations. The second is the distancing DA.
What is our theory of IR?
Like the fact that we have to, solve the Great Power War in Africa always puts Africa as the object rather than the subject.
Our scenario is very distinctly not about Great Power War. We said that in 1AC, but
wait, your thing says, quote, African instability goes nuclear, and then says that it draws in other countries.
Okay, that's fine. OLC kind of plan, how does it solve?
It solves because after the OLC advises the plan, the Congress would become party to ICC.
After the OLC, why?
We read evidence that the OLC's recommendation is it says gold standards for independent professional advice, and it requires a recommitment to norms. It also says that it
around 8 minutes ago you made the argument that Trump does not want to do any of these things. Why would he listen?
If you make the argument, the 2 hour will read cards on why Trump would listen to the OLC. Second is that it says the OLC's legal advice uniquely is key. Like the plan is obviously that absent the OLC's advice, so Trump has no reason to listen. But when internal forces are telling Trump to do the plan, he obviously has greater incentive to listen.
He has greater incentive to listen. That is fine. Trade Review Act, it stops Trump from unilaterally doing tariffs. He's been doing that for 3 months. Why is the impact not happened yet?
Sure, the impact is sort of linear. It's that we need to constrain Trump. It's not just about tariffs, but a litany of existential threats like terrorism, WMD, drug trades, etc.
Okay, he's tariffed Russia, China, the rest of not Russia, but the rest of the world. Why haven't these things happened?
Yeah, or impact is about constraining Trump at large. It's not about one tariff is going to
How does it spill over?
It's the dissent or
the TRA is specifically
the TRA
about
is an example.
tariffs.
No, the TRA is an example of constraining Trump. He would be constrained in something he cares.
If Congress constrained Trump in one thing, he is automatically constrained in everything else.
Yeah. Like we
Yeah.
read specific evidence about the TRA uniquely.
Right. The TRA is only about tariffs. That's fine.
Okay, sure. And like tariffs are also the way that Trump is able to exert foreign power. Like you could beat a card in the one area if you want about how the dissent does not constrain Trump. And we'll just answer that.
Okay, the drum strings dissent was read, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Starting the card. Alright, 313 left. The order is case, then option order, that is the critique, new Fs, OLC, TRA, sovereignty.
Wait, can you
hold
say
on,
that?
hold on.
Yeah, option order.
Critique, new apps, and what?
Critique new Fs, the process kind of plan, politics dissad, sovereignty dissad, military dissad, whatever that was, drones kind of plan. I'm gonna send it out right now. Cool.
No, not really. Sounds good. 191 incentives is wrong. Empirical report conceded there's significant impact on declining abuses ways because it's only empirical evidence. 1NC2 sanctions are solved by fiat. That's UN10. Drop 1C3. Enforcement doesn't assume the planned threat of the U.S. also compels other countries to follow on, which is the fee evidence. 1C4 ratification ends war in Sudan, averting state collapse. It gives Iran the Red Sea. Otherwise, the Red Sea closures go nuclear. Doesn't matter if there's no great power war over Africa, but the Red Sea. 1R5 ratification aligns middle powers which deters Croatian activity and instability that provokes a World War III. Doesn't matter if it's doesn't matter if they don't solve impacts, but it prevents them from going nuclear. Now the critique first framework with Africans uniquely explains the implications unpredictably shifting the burden of return creates a corrupted balance that leads to entire species and fairness and clash. No sub-information all causes like school losses are materialized as technical errors or change blocks, not minds. Fairness outweighs one solves the ballot can't materialize. The alternative that can remedy unfairness outweighs our proximity. Second is paradox. If equal access to ballot doesn't matter what half. Then results are paradoxical because they require fairness to be evaluated. The half returns a length. The reason the ICC does bad things is because of U.S. opposition coalition, but joining shifts their focus to prosecuting other countries. The fiat argument is wrong. Inherency decreases faith in the state because it shows people the failures of it. New AFs, one, counter the AF, we break new. If the word topical, one is innovation to strategic benefit for making new encourages risk adverse debaters to experiment that ways. Abuse is temporary, but depth affects every round of research skills. Second is functional limits at the end, topics are predictable. Advanced calculus check infinite AFs. Third is feasibility. There's only two AFs, there's theory, Krauss substance, which outweighs the OLC counterplan. One, do both. Second, do the counterplan. They allow consult conditions, sunsets. It could be that kills fairness error after they get time advantages and recovery speech. Ought, not certain, nor immediate. Atom 16. Ought to get that fixed no obligation. I've given this as a good idea doesn't mean not a need to express ought, express should. And can solve case, say no in heresy. An audience cause creates incentives to avoid ratification. And best implementation and enforcement is watered down. Empirics in Devon 17. If you didn't like answers from OLC, you would ask other NT not willing to allow OLC veto Trump do more on treaty front committed them similar to Obama Act unilaterally. The PRA said it won't pass. That's their own evidence inserted, re-highlighted, and it gets vetoed. B4A, Trump, White House said Trump would veto Congress needs supermajority, and the impact is dumb. 3 months of unilateral tariff flip-flop, no reason spills over to impact Trump anywhere else. Now, the sovereignty dissent group, the next two dissents are the same link. First case outweighs Sudan collapses in a month after the absent intervention, which means that it's faster political prosecution. It's long complementarity, allows self-investigation, and we comply with every standard, so there's no basis for prosecution. That's Vindman, and they wouldn't prosecute. It's immensely costly, risks Trump lash out, and losing U.S. support outweighs adversary charges. We've read evidence that says that they care about that. The court follows U.S. interpretation because we can induce allies. That's Kagan. We can also pass laws to limit ICC jurisdiction against the military, which overrides treaty commitments. Also Kagan's lastly controlling the pursuits massive influence and reshapes norms to favor the U.S. That's quote perception link. It's nonsense. The cards say political rhetoric, not Trump's actual beliefs. They conceded that he wants leverage over the ICC in Sudan, which changes calculus, all causes, politics, economics, and military overwhelm sovereignty. Inserted in blue, the drones is said first. Case turns a terrorist resurgence is inevitable if Sudan collapses. A full hold that creates a belt across Africa. That's there. So it also solves the ICC empirically deters terror. They consider a meta study. Zero empirical evidence flows neg. That's forward. It also only bans drone strikes against civilians. That's inserted in blue. Those catalyze terror. B22. Evidence by CIA strikes encourage terror groups to exploit destiny, increase radicalization. Trump and terrorists increase attacks after drone strikes radicalize faster and kill the advantage counterplan first. Condo, it's a voter first rescue and clash turns counterplans into no riskation unless some kick our best off like straight turn for groups. The course strike pressure to 200 just assaults can't kick you straight turn and they get to test apple. We can punish bad counterplans. Ratification is key. One is signal. It's received as non-committal. A complete 180 of U.S. policy is key to revitalize ICC legitimacy. That's the second is lawfare. Only ratification gives us diplomatic clout to prosecute in Sudan. Otherwise, there's no motive to listen. That's Sheffer. The support plank doesn't solve because it only it means that we support the ICC, but we don't get influence within it. Now, the other perm plan don't first strike North Korea, Texas, or John towards inclusive action they mandate, even if textual interests and functioning non-intrusive perms are good, different articles that benefits and block strike plan.
What was the inherency deficit on OLC? It was like say no inherency when the enforcement thing.
Say no inherency. Let me open that up. Yeah, say no inherency in audience costs create incentives to avoid ratification if the AF is inherent. There's attitudinal barriers.
What?
If the AF is inherent, there are attitudinal barriers to ratification, which means that Trump wouldn't want it.
Okay. What was the third argument on the counter plan?
That was the third.
No, it was like after do the counter plan.
Yeah, after do the counter plan, it was say no, inheritance in the card.
Like right before not certain.
Oh, right after from do the counter plan was it allows consult conditions and sunsets to compete that kills fairness.
Wait, well, what kills that?
The counter plan, it's a justification to do the counter plan, it's consult is bad.
Okay.
Or consult has arguments.
Reasons to reject the team?
Conduct.
Conduct. The order is OLC, the advanced chapter. Give me a second, 6. Okay, that's it.
Good.
Yes, well.
Good. The counterpart has strong progressive legal opinion over the ICC and the OLC. Public advised the President Congress to ratify the treaty. That solves the OLC advice becomes legal obligation forcing Trump to comply. That restores the OLC as a gold standard in lawmaking, providing improving transparency, decision making by signaling Congress and the public. The basis behind the executive action caps nuclear conflict policy to design failure and inter-branch conflict that otherwise risks miscal turns the case anything else produce conflict between the executive Congress and public perception making nuclear escalation inevitable. Now, one is do both. Do both ruins spill over what is perceptually perceived as a present passes plan, and then the OLC advises which causes more confusion, destroys complainability. That's the code. Evidence to use accountability. Kaufman, Twitty, strategic decisions to viable means of legal law. Policy brings question by transparency, SOP, accountability, actions and aware reaction will be on run. The ability to effectively oversee the activities, public advisability to account for identifies the basis of power and now being less fully transparent into to radically different outcomes as they represent the overall fulfillment strategy and unilateral action for the greater leverage. The accountability alone solves the app best, maximizing trust, cooperation, signal, sends a better signal to our allies because it's in the OLC reigning in Trump, the permits versus all rules that makes Trump look like he's taking control from the OLC and furthering his campaign of attacking lawyers and destroying the rule of law. 3 is ad hoc rationalization that destroys Trump's legitimacy, not killing. Indeed, the OLC decision to form the basis of crisis about ones or the minute post to have rationalization controlling advice off tomorrow's opinion can not be binding in advice. The OLC opinion be considered advice can't get forward or ignore. The OLC with the words of the authority, the OLC's capture the office of hardly ever tells the action for the lawyers making reasonable but legal rationale for whatever action he wants to take the longer. Putting impartial opinions or his lawyers not objective expertise that's bad for the law. Of course, conflict only comment reduce administration. Reign 17, the perception of legal battle reign 17, the single kind of formal OLC must be still what I call institutional choice. It proceeds because the press forfeits no control of that. The one works is single to initial actors. The OLC opinions of course only to justify. Of course, the conduct thus capable of signaling credibility. The perception of the legal battle between Trump and the OLC is the only thing that can solve that benefit. Clear authority is the key to effective and stable policy making. Otherwise, authority means muddled and Trump will continue the muddled and Trump will continue to disobey the rule of law. Now, 1 or 2 was do the counterplan. The counterplan is a severance litigation for neg and class. The counterplan never fails to plan. Instead has the OLC apply that he was enacted. That's the evidence. Whether they comply is up to them, making sovereignty a question of effect. Meaning the counterplan justifies permitting states because federal law or international because the US model was destroys negative ground because any action could potentially result in the plan. Just think about it. If they read the counterplan on the act, they go negative on locality and deals justifies non-binding ratification that just happened. Every negative disadvantage of state grant independently the US means if the branches drop and the one area means the resolution made. They cannot go beyond the action. That's no evidence independently. The consult fairness it's wrong. It's good because it's grounded in the literature. Now, all certain media is wrong. 1, yeah, must be certain in media. If it's not certain, they can no link every single decide because the plan would not necessarily happen. If it's not immediate, the plan, the politics would go away because the plan could happen after politics. It takes net ground. Also means that they could get out of any time frame decided because they could say it would happen after a certain conflict. Now, subtlety. Say no is wrong. Trump cannot wriggle out. What is finding is or evidence assumes Trump says it's a reason by restoring OLC power is key. That's the evidence. B2 is bidirectionality. Trump can find a way to wriggle out of constitutional procedural law. He can also circumvent the plan, especially when it's a treaty that the entire Republican government opposes. That's triple fiat cuts both ways. 3 is constitutionality. It's legally binding with an Article 2 authority. The exec office, SP, sign JG, and Attorney General authority. Garrison 13. OLC advises significant impact to real intervention powers authority to review constitutionality regarding SP's issues attorney of the law based on the authority of the Attorney General and the DOJ for Article 2 of the Court President. Interpretation should go the President have a principal way to be taken the Attorney General. Responsibility in terms of the OLC to consider treated final conclusion so it becomes the executive interpretation force. That's Trump has failed to overcome the tort. TF20, Trump failed 93% of the time in court litigation spread blows deliver blows to Trump in successful challenges. 5 empirics challenges. Checks and balances are still in place. Wire for 24. Trump's will proceed on checks. We all these principles including litigation, sure, regular protection means attack 1, 246. Regs will challenge the Trump admin 22%, 6%, 92 courses. The court ruled against Trump on 82 withdrew the action. The court notably struck down the CCA and abolished system request to end the Trump album. Don't think that enough interrupted. And Trump again to the court and agreed 3 times even more when Trump judges. Now the enforcement court is also wrong. Does not assume the court is written first into the context of vetoing policy. The counterplan is distinct because it's recommending a policy. This counterplan is like if Trump wants to do something, he will not let the OLC say no. It does not say that if the OLC is recommending something, he would say no. Now the second thing is that if he would ask other policy, he would ask other organizations. They don't have evidence that these other organizations would also say no. But the process of asking is sufficient to solve their benefit. Now the last thing is that this evidence is discarded in the context of Obama. It says nothing specific to Trump, but we are outcarding them 5-1 in the context of cards specific to Trump. This is that Obama, if Obama did not answer, he would from the OLC, he would ask some other entity. The evidence also says that the Trump is not so much that he would Trump is going to pursue a different set of policies, then he might do something different, but it's not saying what they would do. The last thing is you should use evidence quality or evidence specific to Trump, but there is not. Now, the advanced Trump. Conditionality is good, so I suppose always a logical option. One is like flex math. Unified net ground and cost atomic area size is the infinite outcrop. The two always stand back to rest of its two overturners on top constraints on the ground are always redefined to exclude the neg after 1 3. Complements bad, complement the after that. This fails, it's functioning uncounted, the neg cannot reach existing complements because circle means judgments on presumption. Now, the last thing is go to new apps. They considered a speculator specified agents, but usually impacts ground as this mechanism says in well, the miners are also pick a different spike links. How's counter competition kills parents, the negative engagement of bidirectional uncontroversial talking with infinite after ground and lack of deceptive uniquely forcing the negative to hyper-specific generic. Side bias should be filtered for impact calculus on every single theory argument, interpretation, drug arguments, and when you do not get one of your answers or helps applications prefer when slowing occurs in orbit. It keeps debating too. The impact occurs the absolute opposite to the miners, and then the response includes the 5 10 6 increase living debates. Now, the only thing they said is reasonability. Reasonability is only matters if they have defense in the shell, which not every single piece of defense is applied into the other shell about new apps. It said there's only two apps, but the agents can be specified to an infinite number, which means that there is no reasonable justification for that. No counter. Yeah.
313. Alright. There is case A spec, the you know, not ready.
Sorry.
Okay.
You said case counterprime and the A spec.
A spec, then the counterplan.
You're good.
Case outweighs the wrong ending for holding Red Sea, concentrated instability that crashes the global economy, destabilizes order, ensuring quick nuclear escalation duration outweighs on time frame. Sudan collapses in weeks after ICC intervention, so it's years faster. Their nebulous net benefit, zero weighing between case and the net benefit, so it's a non-starter. Any risk of a deficit outweighs A-spec. Reasonability, our word still applies. There's only 2 Fs on the topic, which means an incredibly limited amount of advantage run. Even if there's more than one actor, there's still only a certain number of advantages to joining 2 Fs, which means that you certainly have the ability to apply. You should use reasonability because anything else sacrifices topic and it outweighs, because we only have 2 months to discuss the topic. It's the only reason that schools fund debate, which means that it has to come first. They say dropped arguments don't get crossed out. It's wrong. It was a blip in the 1NC, which means we couldn't predict it, and it's a reasonable cross application of the it's a reasonable cross application because reasonability is a generic paradigm issue. Now they say it only matters to their defense. It's wrong because they draw functional limits. Anything in the topic is predictable. Literature and advanced CAD plans check infinite Fs, which means that there's no risk of it. Now the CAD plans say no. It's a crush. The plan's immensely unpopular. We conceded their link on politics, which proves that there's massive audience cost. Their ratification because Trump sanctioned the ICC. It looks like insane flip-flop, which means that he would avoid it because he cares about his perception. They drop empirics. It's game over. It's the Devon 17 card. Obama and Trump 1.0 both ignored the OLC, which means that Trump could just choose to not pass the plan. The first argument is bindingness. It's not binding. It's a recommendation by the OLC, not a reason that Trump has to follow. He can just ignore it. It says as a quote significant impact, but nothing in the card says that it's a constitutional bindingness or any reason why Trump necessarily has to follow it. It's the same argument they made in competition, which we'll concede. Second is it's bidirectional. It's bidirectional. They say whether they apply is up to them. It doesn't matter if it's bidirectional or constitutional or not. It's just not an argument. Third is the constitutionality argument stumped by Obama. He routinely ignored it and would seek out another ruling from a body like the White House Counsel, which is equally binding, and would say that he doesn't have to follow it, which means that there's certainly no impact. And this 4 stats is wrong. Nice courts counterplan blocks, but the counterplan does a fiat a lawsuit, which means that there's no argument about the courts making him comply. 5, it's the same argument still about court compliance, which is not the thing. The OLC is a distinct body, which means that it's wrong. Now the enforcement answer, they say that's in the context of vetoing policies. There's no distinction. It's legally the same thing. When Trump when Trump asks for an opinion, the OLC, he doesn't like that opinion. He can just ignore it. None of their evidence says that he has to follow it. None of it says that's binding and conceded. It's unpopular, which means that certainly 0. They say other organizations wrong. They would. Trump hired things like the White House Counsel, which means that they have an incentive to do whatever he wants and say what he wants, which means they just find another body to do it. They say that the card is in the context of Obama. No, it's a predictive claim. It says that Trump will be worse and more aggressive, especially in the context of treaties, which means that Trump certainly also ignores it if Obama did too. Now, the evidence quality argument is wrong. Ours is better. It's the only one specifically says that Trump would ignore the OLC. They have no evidence on this. Game over. Say no. So 0 of the F.